going on? Good morning, what's going on? What's up, Rasan? Yeah, I know, I like it too. Right now I'm just going through some castings that I was using for a nursery, but I've let them dry out last night. Now I'm just kind of harvesting a little bit and just going to use the bigger material, which there's still some worms in it, but it's filled with eggs. So I'm just going to top off a few of my other nursery bins with it. Got 2 people in here. Cool. Other person other than Rasan, are you into worms? Or are you just kind of scrolling? No. Really right now, with what I'm doing right now, it's just a live. I'm going to be going live pretty much every time that I do worms. And just kind of make it like something that I do. There's going to be shorts and videos also on it, but I'm going to make these lives public so that I've done a bunch of them. None of them are public. And that's how I'm going to make a video, is that I'll do like maybe half an hour if the conversation's good, while I'm doing my worms, which is about how much time I put into the worms anyway. Right? So, I mean, this is one aspect that I'm willing to show of my life. I have others that are pretty cool too, that kind of intertwine. But right now I'm just separating some castings, getting some more worms out. Almost playing around. I don't need to do this. I could have left this stuff sit. I don't need the castings. But I'm about to set up a lot of bins. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm 11, I'm 12, I'm about to put more shelves in. I'm about to bump it like another 20 bins. So, Kramer's backyard. I've raised worms for decades, actually. Nice. What kind of worms did you run? These are African red wigglers. Decades, man. So you've been fighting the fight. It's amazing. I appreciate it, because honestly, it's a really good thing. Regardless if it ends up being profitable for me in the long run, I'm going to continue to do it on some level to benefit myself, but also just to release good life into this world. Like, where are you from? Kramers? You in Florida? That's where I'm located. North Carolina, nice. Yeah, obviously I'm doing it for a business also, but the first idea was to feed my needs, and then I've kind of overwhelmed that, and I enjoy working with them. And I've figured out a couple processes. It is a good investment, Rasan. I think that the returns, I think, are slow, and there's a buildup just like any business. But if you put your mind to anything, you can make it work. I think the best investment is for the planet. I think what actually comes from people raising worms, even for profit for themselves, I think the biggest benefit is that you're doing good for the planet. You know, a lot of businesses, a lot of careers end up being detrimental to the surroundings. This can be very beneficial, and what like there's levels to it that we haven't even really reached with what they're capable dealing with, like large amounts of human waste, like taking over that total industry and dealing with that, getting rid of that byproduct. But yeah, so I just went through what I call it was an older nursery bin that had produced tons of babies. My worms are for the castings, personal and business use nursery. Yeah, and that's kind of what we have, a small nursery specializing in edible, thrive on neglect plants. And we make all of our soil in-house right now, mostly from our compost and a lot of perlite. Really helps us down here in Florida. Lots of perlite is what I'm into right now, which is there's a cost, but I can't figure out a way around it. I figured out a way around fertilizers and soil to a certain degree, but perlite's that one thing that I have to bring in still, which I'm gonna start buying in large quantities. But yeah, so what I just went through, this bin here doesn't have enough worms to really set one up. But if I pan over here, these 4 bins at the bottom are all babies. They're nursery bins. So I'm going to use this as the bedding. I'm going to add some of my more bedding, a little bit, probably a scoop. And what I use for bedding is just a pre-compost. Sorry, this is just a little bit of it. I have whole piles of it outside. So I'm just going to take 1 scoop. There's plenty of stuff in here. This is a little bit of fresh to mix in, super inoculated bin. And then I'm going to add a bunch of worms. So I'm just kind of resetting a bin back into production. These are finished castings, right? I sell my product, Kramer, as vermicompost. Partly because it takes a certain amount of time to achieve a pure casting. So I'm kind of, there's a gray area. Most people are selling vermicompost if they're producing it very quickly, which I think it's better. You don't need all the castings that we're using. Having the compost and whatever else I mix in with their chow seems to be working for my plants. This stuff is fluffy. The red wigglers are hard. The castings are very small, so it's hard to really, for a lot of people, to determine whether it's a casting or not, but you can tell if you really look closely. So that's, so those are just finished castings. They'll get bucketed. So what I'm going to do real quick is pull off my nursery bins, there's a couple, and if you pull it back, you can see that there's a bunch of worms that I've fed and now brought to the top. So we're just getting some worms in there. I don't do a set amount. There's a lot of worms in here. This is just one of them. And I've been pulling from yesterday. I took a big order out yesterday for a customer. So we got some worms there. And a lot of people are running running like $250 for a production bin, depending on how much bedding and feed that they give them. The nursery bins like to be a little wetter. The deep one, a lot of casting. You can see all the babies. I just come in and scoop right around the food. And yeah, this is going to be a younger bin. I'll probably run it a little longer. So many baby worms. What's going on? Sorry, my worms are from casting personal. Keep up the good work, man. Thanks. Oh yeah, what's up, Drift? Melvin. What up? Good morning. Pure castings is a myth. There's always something in there that didn't go through. I agree. Have you heard of Clackamas Coot, Kramers? He's a guy that doesn't have much footage out there on YouTube, but you should look him up. He's done interviews, and he said about a year that if you're doing it right, that you can claim some sort of purity to it after about a year of running it continuously. Again, why claim something that you can't tell? So it's like, yeah, you never have to put the word pure in front of your castings. I just like the vermicompost because there's always going to be a little bit of other stuff in there, and really you don't have to change price that much. It's like, I don't know, it's like a gray area. Look at all those. Just off the top. Again, pretty young worms. Some are bigger than others. We're just topping off, getting a new bin. Most of my production bins right now have thousands and thousands of worms in. So over this next week, I'm going to be probably splitting most of them in half and just getting another bin out of each of my bins because they're already overwhelmed and resetting them. So I don't need to, like, this is a whole bin full of castings right now that I could pull out. If you look down here, that's just more buckets. I don't know if you can see it. Buckets of castings. So I'm casting heavy. I'm trying to further increase my worms and bring them to another level. And I'm lying. This is this is the new bin. You gotta watch it. I'm telling you, after just a few minutes of trying to make bins, you can forget which bin's which because they all start looking the same. Still putting more worms in this. There's some worms right there. And that could be 30, 40 worms right there. What's too big for screen size, do you think? I run, for sifting, I either run an 1/8 inch. If it's dry enough, an 1/8 inch for the red wigglers seems to work really well. It does grab a lot of the bigger stuff, which I just recycle. But I also have a 1/4 inch if it's a little wetter. To just do a pre-screen. I'm still gonna all my castings will be 1/8 inch screen before it goes to market. I'm trying to pull out I don't want to cause problems. Like if you keep some of this bigger material in there, there still could be like a nitrogen drain because it's trying to break down. So I'm in between. I'm really liking. I have two different. I'll show you. I have two different types of 1/8 inch screen that seem to work a little different. And these are just made, there's no wheels or anything. They're just made to sit inside the bin. So it works just like that. There's two different types. If you look closely, I have one that's a triangle, or not triangle, a diamond, and then one's a square. So the square seems to be working perfectly for me. And they just fit in there. This one I had made so I could do the 1/4 inch up on the top. So I can literally take a 1/4 inch, sit it inside of it and stack it. So it'll do the 1/4 inch first, catch big stuff, go to the bottom one, and just kind of do a double, which seems to be working too. Gotta go spread mulch now. Have a good day. You too, man. That's a good thing to do on a Sunday. Take it easy. Thanks for stopping in. If you ever want to contact me, just check out HuntersWorms.com. I'm gonna make 2 today for that method. I'm gonna make 2 today. Nice. I don't use the stack method though. If I was to just suggest, I would do. The problem with getting the 1/8 inch is finding it. You have what I had to found to get it is you have to get it off for the square Amazon. You have to order a roll of it. I like the double. Yeah, the double screen is cool. It makes it heavier, and then you're kind of like it slows it down. Really, my best advice could be for setting up for sifting is to dry it out a little bit. Not to the point where it's dead dry and you're messing with the worms, but just let it dry. And with the African red wigglers, their castings are small. So a lot of the castings are going to fall through. You're just going to get some more organic matter coming through it also, which I don't care. It's good for the garden. It's a plus that I'm giving you some good, clean compost. No? All right, so that's one other bin. And I'm just using the cement mixing trays. They fit perfect. They also, I made them to fit on like those black bins with the yellow tops because sometimes when I first started, I was using those bins. Again, so we're gonna pull one. I got one more here. This is babies and eggs. One more. Take a close up just so you can see. Look at that. So I've now set another bin in. This is plenty of worms. And I don't want big worms in these. I'm basically feeding these situations so that the worms will come to the top and to feed them, but really it's just to provoke them to come up. This bin, most of the material is really big, so it's a great place for them for the eggs to just kind of be. There's airflow, and then it's excellent for letting the worms just live in too, because there's tons of stuff to eat still. But yeah, the worm chow seems to be working very well. And then you're also inoculating it, which this was already inoculated, but that's it. So I'm going to leave this here. Plenty of worms. Let this sit for another day. Tomorrow morning I can make another bin right from it. Thinking of converting my system in my basement to a system you're using. Drift, if you want to take it to a video call or just a regular phone call, I'd be happy to. Again, this system's working for me. I think it could work for other people. Even if you're not even using compost, you can still use my system with peat moss. It works just fine with that system. So it can go either way. But yeah, I think it's working. It is working. All right, so this is a new bin. Have to label bins. Have to. If you don't label the bins, you might as well. You're just making a mess, really. You don't know where you don't know where it is. You don't know where it's going. I'm not organized either. Like honestly, I'm like the least organized person, really. What Drift? What system? I think I've watched some of your videos. You have videos out, right, Drift? So we're labeling. What's today? 22nd, I think. So it's a breeder bin, is what I call them. And I'm just 10/20, 22. And then I leave a little space for tick marks because I put a mark every time I check it. Whether I feed it or water it, it's been checked. That's all that matters to me, is that I know that it's been either it was watered or fed or nothing because it was perfect. Just one on my compost. Just one on my compost setup. I made a 2-tier tote setup and a 1-tier tote setup. Nothing fancy, huh? Yeah, I don't think, even with the buckets, I've set a lot of people up with the 5-gallon method, 5-gallon bucket. I did find that it's pretty hard to regulate the moisture. It usually stays a little wet, but I don't. Red wigglers, which you already probably know, Drift, I'm guessing, is that they like to live in a certain amount of space. So if you have a bin that's stacking 3 of these high, right, you have that first surface space, but then you have all this wasted space, right? So when you break it into a system like this, in that same area, you can get 3 times or 3 times the amount of surface area if you have a rack system. So you're really just you're able to produce 3, maybe even 4 times the amount in that same vertical space. Again, you have to have shelving. I traded one of my a knife that I owned. I didn't make that knife, but I traded it for all of these rack systems, which was a great deal for me. I have more out there to expand to, but yeah, I think the rack system works well. You can build your own with like 1x1s or 1x1s. Like Mimi's Worms, she does a rack system out of wood, but I mean, there's a cost to it. You could just do a regular shelf. I've just figured out with this. 1 second. Take off the tripod. Let me flip it around. So I mean, I just lucked out with being able to set it. Like a lot of people, they would rather be able to feed and water easier, so they'll do like maybe 1 to this area, even maybe to here. So you can maybe lose 1 or 2 bins in this row, but it's easier to get to them. Hey, how you doing? Canny Land. You tracking, Drift? So figure out a good shelving unit that gives you a good spacing. I'm fine with bringing them to a table. I'm strong enough. It was just a Facebook marketplace. And originally they weren't for this. They just ended up, I just saw it working. Originally, I didn't have it all the way across this wall. It was like I actually had it doubled up. So I mean, I had two sets which are now set up out there. I had two sets in a row, double out, so it was coming out to the entrance of my door. So I had two deep, but I didn't have it going down as far. I've now spread it out so it's completely against this wall. It gives me more working area here, right? And then I'm able to like have my sink and stuff over there, which that sink area and stuff is for knife making mostly. I would make, like, if you can't find something like this for a good deal, buying metal shelves like this new is insane. You can build your own. There's plans out there, and they work just fine. And you can really customize them to how you want it. If you see, I have a lot of empty space down here. It's probably 2 or 3 bins worth of space. So eventually, starting next week, I'm going to pull everything that I store other than a bucket's height and a crate height, and I'm going to bring in probably at least 8, 16, like 24 more bins at the very least I'm going to put up on this shelving unit, because I'm working on a pretty big deal, so I need to start producing even more. So, but yeah, this is it. And then eventually this season, because I just found out that these worms will go down to 35 degrees or up to 90 degrees. So I'm doing them outside. So eventually that rack in there is just going to be for producing more babies. It'll just be all nursery bins. And then I'll be feeding systems out here, like passive systems, or I really like the reverse tote system, where you're just going to basically start off with some compost, put, let's say, 10,000 worms into it, and then let it build up, and then you'll harvest out of that tote, or the super sack is what they're called. So that's like, and I feel like if you do them in the shade in Florida, even, you'll still be able to do it. So I just like at the end of the day, I've been trying to figure out how to make this type of stuff, like how to make it more appealing to people and get more interest towards it. And it's like, really, like, okay, so you're growing your garden from petrol-based chemicals that are degrading your soil. Like there isn't much better reasons to want to do something than to provide yourself like high quality food, not polluting the water that's being drawn from underneath you for your well, if you're on well. So it's really like, it's just going to be me hammering on people, letting them know that like you can produce fertilizer, soil conditioner in your backyard. I mean, it sounds like you already know with the biochar. The biochar can be a detriment too if you don't pre-inoculate it. Like when I use biochar, I pre-soak it in tea, and make sure it's loaded with all the good stuff before I put it out there, because it'll also collect bad stuff if it's not already saturated. Yeah, biochar, and you can make biochar very easily on your property. There's different grades of it, obviously. Drift. Soak it 9T and just let it sit in the compost for a few months. Yeah, I just soak mine in the tea. So I'll do like a worm tea, and then I'll just bag that and let it soak. You're making casting tea? You're taking the castings to a tea? Which is really the way casting should be dealt with. It's great for topical, kind of like a granule mix-in. I mean, we're using it as a soil. It's part of our mix for our potting mix. But really, the tea is where it's at, because you can adjust, you can add other things to it, you can make it more of a fertilizer by adding more nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. Like, you can add those to it to change what it is in powder form. And Drift, I would love to talk to you off of this too, honestly, because sounds like you're into it. And again, if you want to do a system that I didn't make up, I'm mimicking. Read a whole bunch that I haven't done. Yeah, most of it's just experimenting. I've come down here a couple times and had 5,000 worms sitting on the ground. Like, dude, why did you try to push our feeding back an extra day? I don't know if it was the reason that was the main reason, but be careful with the changes that you make. Do them slowly, gradually, and calculate them. If something works for me, it does not mean it's going to work for you, you know? Read a whole bunch, but I haven't done a whole bunch. I'm not too big into the drainage of a towel. Like, my system doesn't need drains. They regulate the moisture. I give them just a little bit of moisture, help retain it with plastic, and they regulate it. They like, as long as it can't evaporate really fast, most of the time you're over watering them. If you're constantly watering them, it's too much. There's a threshold. They want to be able to get out of being wet to a certain degree. Is what I'm saying. Like, when I overwater a bin, you could tell. It's like a different sucking noise. It's almost like they're suffocating. And then you could tell, like, I don't know how I'm awake at 18, weekday, like, oh my God. Jackie bored. I don't know how I'm awake at 8:51 on a weekday. Like, weekend? Where are you at? Where are you from, Jackie? It's not, so it's 9:51 here. So are you central? You in the States central? It's if you're here, it's not the weekday, it's a weekend. I'm guessing that's just a spell check. Or are you weekend? Yeah, okay. Hey, it could have been one of those long weekends that you think it's Monday. You woke up thinking it was Monday because you went so hard on Saturday, you just skipped Sunday. I'm in the USA. Nice. You at Central Time? Let me guess. Arkansas. No, I don't even know if that's Central. Yeah, that's wait. Nope. Where are you from? 6 people watching. Nice. Do you do worms, Jackie? Is there anybody in here that wants to do worms, but USA? Is there anybody that wants to do worms, but is there anybody in here that wants to do worms, but can't afford it, or can't justify the cost of getting into it because there's just another thing it's another cost. Is that anybody's issue with doing something like this? Like, you've researched it, you're excited, but you're like, man, I gotta buy worms. Later, Jackie. Take it easy. Thanks for stopping in. Hey, he probably has good Saturdays. If you have to question why you're up on a Sunday this early, it's because he's smashing on Saturdays so hard. Or her. Some people sleep. Like, I think that, like, I haven't slept in on a weekend in a long time, but some people like sleeping on the weekends. They work hard during the week. It's earned. I guess let's take a look at a bin instead of just talking. I'm probably going to get off in a few. It's been at half an hour. It seems like a great conversation. Kind of want it to be more informational and, like, beneficial. I can talk for hours to my own detriment. Again, this is just a nursery bin. Let me pull off my regular bins. Like, here's a 9. This is a 929, so we're coming up. So what do we have in 9? I have 929 is my next harvest. No, 928 is my next harvest. So this is a 929 that's been fed and watered yesterday. That's what we got going on in these bins. just an active bin. I mean, it's just in the works. I need to get better camera. They've all gone down now, but I mean the diversity and the different looks of worms too. Like that's a red wiggler. It's just a long one. It's a big one, big mama. But there's a lot of different shapes and sizes that you get with the red wigglers. This is just an active bin, a bunch of different things going on. If you can't see it, but there's other types of bugs in here, mites, just a mix of other different parts of the ecosystem. Baby worms that are in here, eggs, wood chips, and then my chicken chow mix. So yeah, it's just an active bin. It needs nothing from me. I just disturbed it. They were all mating and eating, and then I just opened. It's like a huge orgy was happening. I just walked in and turned the lights on in the middle of it. Here's one from 9/28 that's coming up in a couple days. The wormage, tons of babies. What do we got? Any creatures that you see in your bin that lets you know something is off? Now, even if, like, some people are trying to claim that my baby worms are pot worms, which they're not, because I'm watching them grow. I'm pulling them out and seeing them get bigger. Not to say that there isn't a pot worm in here. I have not yet found, maybe a lizard would be eating on the worms. I think, yeah, just like more predatory bug-eating animals. You know? Lizards for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think that some people that deal with worms, it's not going the way that I don't know how to explain it. Because I don't want to say people are doing a bad job, but it's like people are better at things than other people, right? And you figure some things out and that other people haven't yet, which should come eventually. And it's just like they make claims or their suggestions are off, and they just haven't experienced it yet. Most of my information with the worms after the initial it's anecdotal now. It's like my experience. It's what's working for me. And yeah, I'm sticking to that. It's like what you can skin this cat many different ways. I mean, I just open my bins and I look at it. Every single one of these bins is a different bin I can open up, and the proof is in the pudding. Just tons, thousands of worms. It's not just on the top. It's saturated throughout this bin. Just a consistent amount of worms throughout. They're everywhere. There's food everywhere. Some aren't quite as full as others. I mean, I have some with what seems to be 5,000-6,000 worms in it. This is a lot newer bin. Here's another 9/28. Let's see what this one's at. Looks amazing. Thanks, Luke. Here's another one. Maybe eating right through the middle of that. There's another big old worm. Baby worms everywhere. Big old worm right there. Yellowtail, it's just what they get sometimes. I mean, this is a mature worm. If you can see. Happy worms. Thanks, Luke. And you said, do you have worms, creatures in your bin? I don't know if you heard. Do you run worms, Luke? I want consistency through that. Like they're spread out. They're not. They do come to mate, but like if you just go through it, there's room for all these worms. There's just a saturation throughout. They're all working, and I've got it down to an equation. Yep, I have a worm bin made out of an old refrigerator. That's a good idea. I've seen those happen. Seen those work very well. It really doesn't matter what the container looks like, as long as there's some airflow and you're tracking their moisture in their feed. I think most people are overfeeding the worms. If you allow them to undistractable, no, I labeled that one. So again, this week I'm going to go through. Just keeping the bears and the raccoons, yeah. That's awesome, Luke. That's good. I think at that level, it's that's where it's the most beautiful. Is that like, yeah, you take a piece of something that you were going to throw away, you turn it into something else, and then you're taking scraps that are normally and going to the dump, and then you're feeding it to something else that's then going to feed your property. It's like it's a cool circle that's necessary. It really is. So, but I'm gonna get off, Luke. It was good talking to you. If you want to chat about worms or have any questions or have any advice, you can check me out at HuntersWorms.com, and there's a chat box, and you can it's 24-hour access. Yeah. So, but take it easy. Yeah. You gotta watch the bear. I mean, the bears. Raccoons. Well, it seems like if you just put enough holes in it, it would be. Wouldn't you be able to keep them out of there? Like if you just put enough holes for breathing, like it's probably pretty easy to lock it, no? Or are they just ripping into it? They busted the lock. All my material is very consistent because whatever I sift out gets recycled into the next one. So I'm always inoculating. But Drift, if you're still here, you take it easy, man. I appreciate talking to you also. Rasan, thank you for the conversation. Okay, take care, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Great work. Keep it up. Yep, you too. Everybody take it easy. I'll see you on the next one later. I'm going to drop a short in a little while. Tell me what you think. Later.